Well, yes, I came in actually last night. I didn't stay in Yuma, so yeah.
You doing a show?
Yes, I was playing casino.
Oh, how was that?
It was fantastic. They put me in the losers lounge.
Is that what it's called?
Well, a casino gig is either awesome or terrible because they do pay well. They put you up in a nice room, but you're either playing the theater, which is great, or the losers lounge, which is just off the side of the casino. And that's where they comp tickets to people that just lost their kids' college fund. And they're not really in the mood for funny man Ryan Shores. And also, every time the door opens, you hear ming, 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 like right as you're doing your set. So yeah, it can.
How much time did you do?
30.
Did you, I mean, like, considering the circumstances, would you say you did well?
I feel I did okay with what I was given.
Did you gamble?
I did gamble, yeah, but which is always really weird when you work at a casino, because imagine just being at your day job and the break room has a casino blackjack guy in there. Like, do you want to put some of your check down here and just you could double it or you could lose it all? You know, that's that. Imagine that being your break room.
I can't. Yeah.
It'll be 15 years in May. I've been doing comedy.
And so, how old were you when you started?
I was 23. I started working the road when I was 24. Which is why I'm 38 and look 52. It ages you.
And how long before you started did you want to do it?
I kind of always wanted to do it since I was a kid. Like every time, I grew up during the comedy boom, and every cable network had stand-up comedy. And so every time I'd see it every day, and I'd grab a wooden spoon and go in front of the mirror, just like I'm doing now, and, emulate these comics, but I just never thought I would be talented enough to do it. I finally pulled the Band-Aid off at 23, though.
And you never stopped?
I've never stopped.
And so, like, what's the longest you've gone without getting on stage? 15 years, besides COVID?
A couple months. Yeah, just a couple months.
Short breaks?
Little short breaks for mental health. Like I said, it ages you. It's taxing on you. You can't stay away for too long. It's like staying out of the gym. It's hard to go back.
It is.
When you don't perform, you start losing little small tricks that you learned along the way. You get rusty. And you also lose your ability to go on autopilot if you're having an off night, because everyone has an off night. Sometimes you're just like, I can't. I've worked all day. I do not want to play this club, but here we go. So you have to be able to go on autopilot when you need it. And if you are away for too long, you'll lose that ability. I started touring about a year in, which is actually really fast for most comics. I was lucky enough to make friends with the headliner who took me on his tour with him. And I started learning the road gigs. And I really learned a lot on the road because it's different than doing your local clubs. When you do a local club, you know all the little tricks like, let's make fun of Santee. That's where Hicks are from. But when you go on the road, you've got to learn about this new town and learn about things about them. So a really cool trick that he taught me. First gig, it was also in Yuma. He went to the hotel desk, and they have the brochures right there? The travel guides. He just started picking them all up. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to go to the hotel room. I'm going to learn a little something about this town. I'm like, and I'm going to open with it. And I said, I thought you always taught me to never open with an untested joke. He's like, caveat. If you open with a little joke about their specific town, it doesn't even have to be that funny. They'll just eat it up. So he just went on stage and went, you guys have a peanut patch. What the hell is that? And they just went, ah! I'm like, that's amazing. So every town I go to, I get the brochures. I'm like, let me find out a little something about this town. The San Diego comedy scene, I think, is different than any place I've ever traveled because, first of all, there's 5 major clubs here. I'm sure you've heard other comics tell you that. And a ton of indie shows. And a lot of them taking place in breweries because they can do amplified entertainment without a cabaret license. I just made that up. I'm not sure if that's true, but they do them there and no one's complaining. And honestly, when people always think of the comedy scene as LA and New York, but people that move from here to LA just come back here to do shows because LA is so oversaturated. with hopeful actors that want to get their name out, I stopped playing LA after about 10 years because I'm going up there to do 3 minutes for 0 pay for 12 disinterested people. So that's why they come down here to where you can do 30 minutes for a few $100s, if you have been doing it long enough. And there's so much demand in this city. And it's a city where it's not oversaturated with things to do. It's got great nightlife, but comedy is one of those things in San Diego where I think it's like Boston in the 80s. You hear about that scene at that time where something special was happening. Something special is happening here right now. Oh yeah, I do think that. It depends on the place, obviously. There are some times where you go into a place and they just kind of got waved in by the guy on the street corner, and they weren't expecting to be at a comedy show this night, and then you get a lot of... So that happens, but all in all, I would say yes, they're very hungry for it. So where do my jokes come from? I don't sit down and write. I know that some guys do. I don't go sit down like, all right, it's joke writing time. Let's see, what's funny? Donuts? Just donuts? So I always say that I think everyone does what stand-up comics do. They just don't realize it. Everyone makes observations. The only difference between a stand-up comic and a regular person is that they don't write it down. Everyone's been in a grocery store and be like, why do the cashiers always ask you to... Ooh. And then you jot that down. You flesh it out. Then I take it on stage, either an open mic that I pop into. Usually, if I'll put it into one of my book shows 2/3 the way through. That way, if I'm doing well, they already like me. I don't open with something untested, and if it doesn't hit, I'll use my normal closer, and then I'll be okay. And I'll make a mental note that sucked, and then from those first times performing it, I'll make mental notes. They didn't laugh there. They didn't laugh there. I think you over-explained it there, and so I'll trim the fat. And then sometimes comics will come to each other and be like, what do you think about this? And we'll tell each other notes like, yeah, a little hacky. I think John Mulaney did that bit. That's not good. So, it's a whole process. But once you finally get through that process, it gets added to your A-list material, and now it's yours. I really think it's actually freeing when you're able to get rid of a joke that used to work, because sometimes jokes that used to hit just don't hit anymore. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I had a joke where I was telling a joke about having a girlfriend with a kid. We broke up. I no longer had that kid in my life, but I kept trying to tell the joke. And for some reason, the audience didn't laugh anymore. And I think it's because the audience is smarter than some comics give them credit for. They can spot a phony. They can spot disingenuous. So I had to cycle it out. But when you cycle out a joke, it means you're growing. I performed with a comic that said, the other day I was in Blockbuster. I'm like, no, you weren't. What the? I'm sure that hit 15 years ago, but it's time to stop it. So it is free. It's hard to let go of a joke that used to work, but it also means you're growing. What percentage of ideas? I don't know. I never sat down. What am I, a scientist? What kind of questions are these?
Apparently bad.
No, I'd say 50%. A lot of them make it onto social media before, and I see if anyone finds it funny. And sometimes social media is a great laboratory too. Some people, they call me out and it kind of sucks, but they'll point out, they'll post a clip of another comedian doing a very similar bit, because that happens. Unless you're doing, I think these days, I've found that unless you're telling a very personal story that no one can replicate, if you do an observational joke, there's going to be another one out there. And there's going to be a meme that has the same type of premise. So I think that modern stand-up has got to move towards personal stories, because there's just the observational stuff, you're going to step on toes. I love it here. I love the Madhouse. I love the Comedy Store where I'm a regular. And those are kind of like my my workshops, my laboratories, where I can go, where I'm a regular, and I can try out new things. When I go on the road, I'm a little more happy because I'm doing all A material then that I've developed in those clubs. But, you know, it's when you have a bad show, that's where you learn. And your good shows where you do all A material, that's your reward for the bad shows. And they don't teach anything.